Welcome to the final webinar in our Healing from Trauma series. I'd like to acknowledge the original custodians of the land on which I'm recording this webinar and the lands on which you're watching. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present and welcome all Aboriginal people joining this webinar. My name is Alison. I'm a senior psychologist in the Links Training and Support team with the Department of Communities and Justice. In this webinar, you'll learn some practical strategies for responding to kids' survival responses. I'll also discuss how to manage your own wellbeing. Please be aware that there are 4 webinars in the series, which you can find on our website. If you haven't watched the previous 3 webinars, please consider watching them now. Please note that I'll be talking about topics that may be difficult. It's important to look after yourself as you watch and be aware of any feelings that arise. If you find any topics particularly difficult, please reach out and talk to a support person, your caseworker, or manager. When kids experience trauma, their sense of psychological safety is significantly compromised. When kids enter care, we're often focused on their physical safety. It's important to build kids' psychological safety so they're not scared or fearful. You can do this by using routines, clear rules and boundaries, and regular meal times. Emotional safety may also be impacted by kids' culture and experiences. For Aboriginal kids, psychological safety may be supported by connection to culture, the land, spirituality, family, and community. It's recommended that you have direct, open conversations with kids about psychological safety. Safety conversations can help you determine anything making kids feel unsafe and steps to build their sense of safety. Be aware that the tone of voice you use is often more important than the words chosen. Your tone needs to show genuine curiosity, empathy, respect, and regard for what kids share with you. Ask kids what they might need to build their emotional safety, but don't rush to fill any silence. Let them know if they can't answer your questions, it's okay to tell you later, perhaps when they think of something or start to feel afraid. Remember to come back to these conversations. Some important events where a safety conversation might be useful include visit with family, starting a new school, or placement changes. It's important to help kids stay chilled as much as possible. That said, there'll be times when they experience heating up. Heating up is the stage kids enter when they first encounter a trigger. This is when they first send out signals of distress. These distress signals are physical and emotional signs that kids require support. They let you know that the brain has been alerted to a potential source of threat. You can support kids to manage their emotions and behaviours by recognising these signals. The response you use should depend on the signals of heating up you see. For kids who are becoming hyper-aroused, fearful or angry, it's important to respond quickly to help calm them. For kids who are beginning to shut down or get numb, responses need to help them stay connected to the present moment. The power of a comforting adult's presence when kids are heating up cannot be underestimated. Your aim is to help kids to regulate using co-regulation. Remember, if adults stay calm, breathe slowly, and talk softly, kids will start to do the same. If an adult is visibly stressed, raises their voice and breathes quickly, kids will find it difficult to calm down. There are many ways you can show that you're present for kids when they're heating up, including staying safe, physically getting down to their level, using a soft, gentle voice, and stopping a difficult discussion or task to help them calm. Emotional regulation is our ability to be aware of and pay attention to our feelings and manage them. Kids learn from their caregivers how to manage their feelings. With consistent and attentive caregiving, kids learn emotional regulation skills over time. However, many kids in care have never had the opportunity to develop their emotional regulation skills. As a result, they often have emotions that feel overwhelming or out of control. It's important not to protect kids from experiencing difficult emotions. Instead, we must help them to learn how to experience the full range of emotions without letting their feelings overwhelm them. One of the best ways to teach emotional regulation skills is for us to model the use of the skills. Everyone can benefit from building their emotional regulation skills. Practicing these skills when you and kids are calm makes it more likely that skills will be used when someone's upset. Don't push kids to practice though. If they're hungry, tired, overstimulated, or have not had enough movement in their day, it's going to be difficult for them to practice. You need to help kids use the skills they've practiced at the first sign of heating up. It's unlikely they'll be able to do this on their own, especially at first. Try building skills through activities like yoga, breathing exercises, or muscle relaxation. Skill building might also include learning how to identify and express feelings through naming and scaling emotions or feeling expression games. It's very helpful for kids to learn how their bodies, minds, and feelings change from one state to another, and that these changes are connected to their trauma. Often kids feel as though they're bad or out of control, so learning about these patterns can be very healing for them. The more they understand these changes, the better their chances of learning how and when they need to calm themselves. The Managing Emotions Guide, or MEG, helps kids gain insight into their own survival responses and develop strategies to help themselves with support from caring adults. The first section of the MEG helps to teach kids about the stages of regulation, how they personally experience the 4 stages of behaviour and why. The second section is where kids list strategies for staying calm and in control and ways adults can support them. You can support kids to complete and use this tool. It's useful for kids to complete the MEG with help from the child support team rather than adults completing it for them. You should keep the completed MEG where it's easily accessible and refer to it often to help the kids you support. Strategies for helping kids learn to regulate themselves will be the foundation of your success. Your best chance of avoiding boiling responses comes from keeping kids chilled with their feelings in balance. You'll find the MEG on our website. When kids are in a re-experiencing state, they can start boiling. This is when they demonstrate the survival responses of fight, flight, or freeze. When kids are experiencing boiling, it's even more difficult to intervene. In this stage, kids are usually overwhelmed with feelings that remind them of their trauma, including threat and harm. Their attention is focused on survival. Responses might include chaotic feelings and behaviours including rage and aggression. They might try to escape the situation, or they may disconnect from their current environment and the people in it. They may even disconnect from their own individual selves. This is called dissociation. When kids are boiling, the calming presence of a supportive adult is key. When adults respond well, they can help kids enter the chilled stage quickly. But an adult's responses can also heighten a kid's survival responses and make it harder for them to calm down. It's important to remember that kids are not able to talk about why they have the feelings they have or what's happening inside them when they're boiling. They may even have difficulty remembering their behaviours or that they had a boiling response. That part of their brain has gone offline. Some simple steps when kids are boiling include intervening early, remembering to breathe, staying calm and neutral to allow for co-regulation, reducing noise in the environment and keeping others safe by having them move away. To help kids move towards cooling, you could offer strategies from their MEG, help them name their emotions, offer limited choices, and remember to use praise. Until kids are in the chilled stage again, it's best not to discuss what might have caused the boiling response. When kids begin to calm down after a boiling response, they enter the cooling stage. Cooling is an important time for healing and a good time to build connection. Be aware that as kids calm, they're at greater risk of heating up and boiling again. Throughout the cooling process, kids need more support from you. You can build connection and provide support by reassuring their sense of continued safety, both in the moment and into the future. Naming their emotions and practicing strategies from their MEG, limiting exposure to excessive stimulation or demands, not discussing what led them to boiling or trying to problem solve. Problem-solving responses for future is important, but should be done when kids are chilled. Signals of safety is a strategy that can be used in all 4 stages to help kids stay chilled and encourage connection. Signals of safety are ways of communicating warmth, concern, empathy, and positive regard with words and actions. Trust is built slowly over time through repeated signals of safety. To support this, you should respond to kids' needs in an attuned and appropriate way, time after time, day after day. Your response does not have to be perfect, just consistent. This is how kids learn to trust adults. Signals of safety are best when provided multiple times during the day. They can be verbal or physical, something as simple as a smile. It's important to remember that you must be genuine when providing signals of safety. If kids don't believe what you're saying or doing, you may reinforce their feelings of mistrust. Working with trusted adults to provide signals of safety is a great way to encourage child support team support. It also ensures kids receive signals of safety across various environments. You can reach out to adults at school, after school activities, in the neighbourhood, or cultural community members. Kids can receive signals of safety by participating in sporting, cultural, religious, volunteer, or artistic groups and activities. It's useful to increase signals of safety for times and places kids struggle. Think about where they might need increased support and who might be available to provide signals of safety. Now let's focus on you. To effectively care for kids who have experienced trauma, you must also care for yourself. Supporting kids in out-of-home care can potentially expose you to secondary traumatic stress. This may result from hearing about their trauma experiences while trying to help them. Secondary traumatic stress is common. The more you're aware of this risk, the more likely you'll seek help and support when you need it. So what puts you at risk of secondary traumatic stress? Your exposure to other people's trauma is a primary risk factor. When you hear about the intensely traumatic experiences of kids, or keep learning about one trauma after another, it can reduce your ability to cope. To effectively support kids in out-of-home care, you need the ability to empathise. Unfortunately, this empathetic practice is also another risk factor. Your everyday stress levels can also increase your risk of developing secondary traumatic stress. And lastly, your personal history of trauma may contribute. Statistics tell us that more than 50% of people in the general population have experienced some sort of trauma. If you're one of these people, you might be more susceptible to secondary traumatic stress. So secondary traumatic stress is an internal change that occurs when you've been exposed to other people's trauma and pain. If you begin to experience secondary traumatic stress, your responses may look similar to those of the kids that you support. For example, you may experience avoidance and numbing, hypersensitivity or re-experiencing. You may also experience a loss of confidence in your ability to be effective. Pay attention if you find yourself having trouble sleeping or experiencing nightmares, having troubling thoughts, worries, or feelings that interrupt your thinking or actions. And if you're experiencing secondary traumatic stress, you might also find yourself losing concern for the kids that you support or giving up, feeling like you can no longer effectively support them, feeling physically or mentally exhausted most of the time, and sleeping too much or too little. If you're experiencing more than one of these signs, and particularly if they have occurred suddenly, please reach out and help. Talk to your caseworker, manager, GP, or trusted friend. It's important to gain help. Support for adults with secondary traumatic stress is similar to the way we help kids affected by trauma. In addition to these strategies listed on the slide, you'll want to talk with your support network about your triggers, including how they can help you reduce them. Develop your own emotional regulation skills so that you can more effectively manage strong feelings when they come up. Be open to talking with a psychologist or other mental health worker. You need a safe place to talk honestly with someone who can offer suggestions and build positive coping skills. To support kids who have experienced trauma, your own social support network is also important. It's helpful to know who will be there for you and who can provide a range of assistance and care. You may also like to develop a self-care plan where you identify your strengths and needs. This will give you the opportunity to grow, change, redirect, and recommit. This was the final webinar in the Healing from Trauma series. The other webinars in the series are available on our website. You'll also find a range of resources there, including the Meg. If after viewing these webinars you feel like you'd like more training and information on trauma, you may benefit from attending face-to-face Healing from Trauma training. If you're a carer, talk to your caseworker. If you work with kids in out-of-home care, talk to your manager, internal psychologist, or therapeutic specialist. Thank you for watching.